my video in which I spoke about my predictions for 2026 in terms of what I think is going to happen in 2026, I mentioned a man called Jacques Attali, who wrote a book called Verbatim, in which he spoke about the Depop agenda. And I just had a thought that I just thought maybe someone would actually like me to read the whole quote about what Jacques Attali said. So I'll just repeat again. What I'm going to read, this reference or this quote, is from a book called Verbatim by Jacques Attali. And Jacques Attali, just to explain his background, or I haven't checked whether he's still alive or not, but Jacques Attali is a member of the Bilderberg Group, or sometimes referred to as the Bilderbergers. It's one of these secretive organizations that is involved in basically pulling the strings of in terms of major events that happen in the world. But another way to describe them is they are a front organization for the Roman Catholic Church. Remember that the Roman Catholic Church is the fourth kingdom upon the earth. So we have Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece, and then Rome. And Rome metamorphosized and became an ecclesiastical organization. In other words, they became the Roman Catholic Church, but it's still the same system, according to Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and we even have Revelation 17 and Revelation 13 that exposes that system. So Jacques Attali is a member of the Bilderberg Group, and he wrote a book, which once again I've already mentioned, but it's called Verbatim, in which this quote comes from. So this quote that I made reference to in one of my other video that I've mentioned, it starts by saying, "The future will be about finding a way to reduce the population." Now, I would say in this whole quote here, this is probably the most important thing that is mentioned. And why is population reduction important, or why is depopulation of the earth important? Because the mega rich families, and sometimes when we speak of rich people, it's the images that come up of Bill Gates and Elon Musk, but these are actually not even, or even what's his name, Warren Buffett and Jeff Bezos and others like them. But actually, there are families that are way more wealthy than the Gates family and Elon Musk and his family and the Bezos family. These families actually are known as the black nobility. They are families that, when you look into the genealogy, it goes back as far as the pagan Roman Empire, and it's believed that they come from the families of the senators that used to rule in pagan Rome. So anyway, these families believe that we're talking about, the ones that I mentioned as the merchants of the earth in Revelation chapter 18, and these other, the black nobility and such families, they believe in population reduction because they believe that there are too many people on the earth who are using the earth's resources, and maybe they actually sincerely believe that the earth's resources are going to run out. I don't know whether they actually believe that or not, but I do know that they're actually quite greedy as well, and they actually want the resources for themselves. So so I also mentioned the issue of automation and robotics and stuff in my previous video, where I spoke about my predictions for 2026. The reason for that is that human beings are seen to be very problematic because they want they get sick and then they don't come to work. Also, and then when they get sick, some of them are entitled based on employment laws. They are entitled to sick leave and things like that, and then they are entitled to 20 something days to 30 days of annual leave. Now robots don't ask for any leave, and they don't ask for breaks. So they work continuously. They just follow orders. Okay, robots don't are not problematic in that they don't ask for smoke breaks and don't ask for toilet breaks. They don't ask for lunch. They just work as commanded. Whereas human beings are seen or perceived as being very problematic because they have rights. Robots don't have rights. Okay, but the main issue is that one of the reasons why they want to reduce the population is that human beings are seen as like it says in the Matrix. You know, when I still used to watch movies. Now I don't watch movies anymore because I understand that movies are evil, and they have an agenda behind them. Without going too much into that, in the Matrix, there's a part where human beings are described as parasites. So it's like they are using the Earth's resources, and at some point it is thought that they might actually finish all the Earth's resources. But like I said already, the rich also want the resources for themselves because the rich make money from the Earth's resources. So, and I have said before that, you know, you should think of the world as one massive company, you know, a gigantic company with lots of employees. But when you then have lots of employees and it's affecting the profits of the company, what do? You reduce the number of employees. So in the same way that the earth is being depopulated through family planning and scamdemics and GMO food and chemtrails, and fluoride in the water and various other ways, like including war, of course, which one of the major ones. This is what they are. This is how they're going to depopulate the earth. So the next line in Jacques Attali's quote, which I'm reading, says, you know, after saying the future will be about finding a way to reduce the population, he then goes on to say, of course, we will not be able to execute people or build camps. Although camps were built during COVID, there were what do they call them? Not isolation camps, quarantine camps. I think they call them quarantine camps, and they were there. I remember that in Australia they were there, and there were Australians who, when they were flying back into Australia after visiting another country, if they got tested at the airport and were found to be, in quotes, to have COVID-19, to be COVID-19 positive, they would then be quarantined in the camp, and the camp was not a 5-star hotel or 5-star facility. Yeah, so even in China, actually, they built a lot of quarantine camps, which and the rooms where the Chinese were quarantined were just a little box with one window in them. So that did happen, actually, even though Jacques Attali said that they would not build camps. It then goes on to say, we get rid of them by making them believe it is for their own good. Yeah, so they were not going to line up people and put them before a firing squad, even though, you know, there were many remember that those who refused the poke were called anti-vaxxers, but there were those who were pro vaccine who said that the anti-vaxxers, so-called, should be put before firing squads. So Jacques Attali said that we couldn't execute people to reduce the population, but we get rid of them by making them believe it is for their own good. And how do you do that? We will find or cause something. He then goes on to say, a pandemic targeting certain people, a real economic crisis or not. And there are many economic crises which have been created around the world. In fact, it's been predicted that there's one coming which will result in the collapse of the world's economy, perhaps, which will then also lead to CBDCs, or central bank digital currencies, being ushered in various parts of the world. So it goes on to say, or it could be a virus affecting the old or elderly. It doesn't matter. The weak and the fearful will succumb to it. I actually highlighted the words "the fearful" and underlined that because I just thought it's very interesting that that word was used, the fearful, because when we go to Revelation chapter 21 verse 8, I think it's actually it's actually the first group that's mentioned there in that chapter, Revelation 21. Actually mentions there are groups of people that are mentioned here. It mentions the fearful. They're the first group to be mentioned. The unbelieving, the abominable, murderers, whoremongers, sorcerers, idolaters, and all liars. But the first group to be mentioned is the fearful. And it says, what will happen to all these different groups of people? It says they shall have their part in the lake, which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So here Jacques Attali mentions the fearful, and it goes on to say, will succumb to it. The weak and the fearful will succumb to it. And then the fearful, I also mentioned there in Revelation chapter 21. So that's how God says many times we should not be fearful, okay? And then moving on, goes on to say, the stupid will believe in it. So Jacques Attali actually says those who believe in pandemics and in viruses, the weak-minded and the fearful, he says they are stupid because they'll believe in it. And what will happen to the stupid who believe in it? It says, let me just read that again. The stupid will believe in it and ask to be treated. Exactly like what happened during this pandemic. He says, we will have taken care of having panned the treatment, a treatment that will be the solution. So in other words, what he's saying is, not only will we create a pandemic, like he said earlier, but we will also pan the treatment. We'll make up the treatment for it. So with regards to this pandemic, personally, through my research, I found out that I kind of knew this earlier on. Initially, I believed the whole story of about Wuhan and there being a virus and stuff like that. But kind of in the early stages of this pandemic, I kind of stopped believing in it and came to the conclusion that it was fake. Because one of the things that convinced me that there was no pandemic and there was no virus was when they started saying in the media that this virus from Wuhan in China had spread all around the world. Now, my question was, not that I watch TV, I don't watch TV, but obviously this was all over the media, whether it was on internet, on social media, they were talking about it, and on podcasts, everywhere basically. So there was no way that even someone who doesn't watch TV wouldn't know about it. Everyone knew about it, including myself. But when they started saying the virus is spread around the world, the question that came to my mind was, where is God? Because God is in control of everything. Why would he allow a virus to go all around the world? I just didn't believe that. And then I started being skeptical about everything that was being said. And eventually, through listening to different videos, and God brought this information to me that the whole thing was a psychological operation which was being run by the Department of Defense in America. It was a military exercise, basically, and also by joining the dots, I understood. Obviously, I knew by this point that the Jesuit order, especially the Jesuit general, runs all the militaries around the world. He's in control of all the militaries, so including the Department of Defense, or what's known as the military industrial complex in America, is also under the authority or control of the Jesuit general. So yeah, let me just read this again. It says, we will have taken care of having panned the treatment, a treatment that will be the solution. The selection of idiots, he then goes on to call those who believe in these things, he calls them idiots. He says the selection of idiots will therefore be done by itself. They will go to the slaughter alone. Yeah, so that's the full quote from Jacques Attali's book, verbatim. It's interesting that the late Henry Kissinger, who was very influential in American politics, he was an advisor to many American presidents, including during the Vietnam War. He advised President Johnson to bomb. I think he bombed Cambodia and obviously bombed Vietnam as well. The whole thing about Vietnam was based on a lie anyway. Perhaps I'll do a separate video talking about why why the Vietnam War really happened and why Americans ended up in Vietnam, which is thousands of miles away from America. Of course, it started with the lie once again that America had been attacked, because it said that the Vietnamese attacked an American ship in the Gulf of Tonkin, if I remember correctly. I think that's what they call it. But then that turned out to be a lie as well, that the Americans were attacked. They were actually never attacked. It's similar to this Bondi Beach incident that happened in Australia, where it said that these Muslims attacked Jews. But when you look at all the evidence, you find that, personally, I don't believe that anything actually happened. But that's my personal belief. You can disagree with it. So that's I just wanted to share the full quote from Jacques Attali. But the most important thing out of this quote is the first line that I read: "The future will be about finding a way to reduce the population." So why is that important to understand that? Because knowledge is power, and when you know what is being planned for the present and the future, you know how to prepare, and you won't take part in these operations, in these governmental psychological operations, because you'll know that the humanity, remember, it's been said many times that humanity is the enemy, and that's actually been mentioned in that's a quote from a book that was produced by the Club of Rome. I'm trying to think of the name of the book. I can't remember. Something about limiting limits to growth. I think it's called Limits to Growth by the Club of Rome. Of course, Club of Rome is similar to the World Economic Forum and the Bilderbergers, in that they are a front organization for the Roman Catholic Church. One of many organizations that the Catholic Church hides behind, so that they are not identified. Okay, so that's what I want to share about that quote. So those who are watching can also be aware of what is being planned and prepare accordingly. So I hope that was helpful to you. And thanks for watching the video, and I'll see you in the next one.